Imagine a world where humanity pursued unity over division. Imagine a world where humanity acknowledged the oneness of everything in the universe. Imagine a world where humanity chose love and light over everything else. It's Not My Credit to Take explores the stories of people from all walks of life who seek to uplift humanity and restore Christ consciousness on this planet. Their unique journeys of tapping into their gifts, talents, and the infinite consciousness are amazing, and their willingness to share them to wake up humanity to their true essence and potential is even more remarkable. Get ready to laugh, to cry, and to be inspired. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Slover, and welcome to the It's Not My Credit to Take podcast. Hello, Julie. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you, Ed?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking time to have this conversation. My guest today is Dr. Julie Hutsell-Starling. Julie is a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, certified health coach, Akashic Records soul realignment practitioner, a Kundalini Yoga teacher, and a Qigong teacher, and has spent the last 20 plus years exploring the power of the mind-body connection and the power that we all have to heal ourselves. As she sought healing for her own chronic pain condition, Julie's journey took her into the healing arts, where she studied Qigong and medical energy work while also becoming an integrative nutrition health coach. She also sought healing and insights into why she struggled with burnout, which led her to the soul healing modalities of Kundalini Yoga and the Akashic Records. She considers herself a way shower, guiding her clients and students back home to who they truly are. Julie, welcome to the It's Not My Credit to Take podcast.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here with you.
So why don't you start by sharing a little bit more about you and how you ended up where you are in your life?
Yeah, so very long story, I'll try to make it as short as possible, is that I grew up in an alcoholic family. My mom was a single mom. She was alcoholic and abusive. And so I basically, my whole adult life has been spent kind of reclaiming myself from that, from the trauma, and healing myself from it. And everything that I've done really has at the root been kind of related to that, interestingly. So, and even the burnout journey, like when I was really struggling with burnout, the root cause of that was all of the behaviors and patterns I had learned as a child in, wanting to receive love, be good enough, all of the things that, most people develop patterns like that of one sort or another, not worthy, all those things for one reason or another. For me, it was from trauma from being in it was emotionally and sometimes physically abusive situation. So, and just always never feeling safe, basically. So that's really how I got on this journey to start. But I didn't know that was what was guiding me. But basically, I developed pain, tendonitis in my elbow when I was in my mid-20s, when I was out of school and I had my first real kind of office job, and I was planning to do a master's in public health, and I was working in this company, and I got really bad tendonitis, and nothing was helping it. And it was a workers' comp related injury because of the work setup station that I had. It was not very good. And so I did all the treatments that my doctor there referred me to, and it just never was getting better. And so I ended up having to quit working. And I had been at this crossroads. I've been planning to do a master's in public health, like I said. And I realized that my body was telling me something, that maybe I shouldn't choose a career where I was going to have to be on the computer all the time. And so then I started wondering what else I could do. And I had a very kind of narrow framework for what my options could be. But I thought, well, I knew I wanted to be kind of more in a one-to-one setting with people where I could have more of an impact, because what I was doing was in the health field, but was much more removed from being able to see the impacts on people. And so I was thinking, well, maybe nutrition or something like that. But all the programs that I was aware of at that time, this is in the, in 2000 basically, or 2001, was just very mainstream, just dietitian type programs. And that all required that I had to go back to get another a bachelor's of science. And I was like, I don't want to do another bachelor's. Like, I'm done with that. If I'm going to do another degree, it needs to be like an upward degree, not a lateral degree, because I didn't want it to do it that badly. And so anyway, so I was just kind of trying to figure it out. And a friend of mine suggested that I study Chinese medicine because, one thing to go back. The one modality that the doctor referred me to that actually started working was acupuncture. And this was after I'd already stopped working, and it was the last resort. But hey, we have this acupuncturist on staff in our workers' comp clinic, which was amazing. This is in San Francisco in 2000. And so why don't you try that? And lo and behold, it was the one thing that gave me relief. So that is how I ended up getting into Chinese medicine, because my friend said, well, why don't you study Chinese medicine? And I was like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not Chinese. Like, I don't have that background. I don't understand it at all. And well, is your acupuncturist of Chinese? Or no, she looks like me. Okay. So anyway, so I started looking around at all the different schools in California at the time, and ended up choosing a school down in San Diego. And in August of 2001, I moved down to San Diego and never looked back. That's how I got on the health journey, basically, which really spurred my healing journey as well.
For listeners who don't know exactly how acupuncture works, can you describe that?
Yeah, I will do my best. So basically, the way I like to describe it to my patients is when we have harmonious, good flow of energy through our bodies are healthy, and you feel well, and your emotional state of mind is good. When dis-ease presents itself with pain, the easiest way to talk about is with pain, just because it's like, people really understand how pain feels. So for instance, when there's pain, that is a result of the qi. So qi is your vital force life energy, or also just, we can call it the energy. It's the energy in the body that is stuck. It's not flowing properly. And in Chinese medicine, the theory, there are these meridians or channels of energy that run through the body. And along each of those channels, there are many different points of access where if you can apply pressure, or you can actually insert an acupuncture needle. And when you do, then you're able to start impacting the flow of energy in that channel. So if you have stuck energy from pain, it's all blocked up in a channel. What ends up happening is it will block up that one channel, but then collaterally it starts impacting other areas too, right? So then the longer it's there, the more involvement there is elsewhere in the body. So the acupuncture works by basically starting to unravel that and allow that free flow of energy to slowly return, so that it creates the homeostasis of wellness again. Does that make sense?
It does. That's a really good explanation. I appreciate that. So you end up moving from San Francisco to San Diego, and you start, as you referred to just a moment ago, your health journey, starting in acupuncture. And yet, as part of the opening read, I referenced Kundalini Yoga, I referenced the Akashic records. That doesn't necessarily seem health related specifically. It seems a little bit more spiritual in nature. How did you get on the spiritual path?
Yeah, so let's see. The spiritual path really started for me. It was like an evolution. But I would say it started in about 2014. when I actually I went on a retreat in Maui that's a funny story the way I ended up on that retreat, but it was this powerful retreat to kind of find yourself, find your purpose, but the retreat had Kundalini yoga twice a day, and I'd only done it one time before, years and years before. It was actually my very first experience of practicing yoga, and I remembered that it was really powerful. And so when I saw that this retreat was doing Kundalini yoga twice a day with this other person who was a coach that I really liked, it's like, I have to go. And it made no rational sense because at that time I had just gotten married to my husband, and I had all this other stuff going on, and I was like, but I have to go. And it was like really expensive and all. But anyway, so I went, and it was totally life transforming. And so that's kind of what started it, because it opened me to a window of other possibilities and there's something about the practice of Kundalini yoga that speaks to my soul on a level that I've never experienced in any other way. And the practice of Kundalini uses we chant mantras, and often it's singing, and a lot of breath work and specific types of movements. It's very different from other yoga practices, and there was just something about it that pretty much every session that we did, I would end up crying, which I now know that the crying, if that ever happens to anyone in a session that they're doing either a healing session or a yoga practice or something, that it's energy that's starting to be released. It's just stuck energy, stuck emotions that have been buried for a really long time that are finally being released through the healing of the body, from the breath work, from the movement, from the, when we sing or chant, whatever it is that you're singing or chanting, it helps if it's kind of sacred mantras, or words, whatever it is, prayer too, we'll do it. But saying it out loud, it's the sound current creates deep healing in the body, and especially when it's our own sound doing it, right? So I know all of that now. At the time, I didn't know that. All I knew was I was just cracking wide open, and I just suddenly saw all of these other possibilities. And on that retreat, I realized I needed to leave my job and go out on my own. As I had been working as an acupuncturist at a clinic as an employee for 7 years, and the situation is just it was no longer good for me. It had turned a corner where it was like no longer healthy for me to be there. But yet I had been fighting it and just resisting leaving. And I realized in that retreat that I needed to leave. Really the spiritual journey, because entrepreneurship is not easy, especially if you, someone like me, I had no idea what I was doing. And it requires that you grow. It requires that you really grow into who you're meant to be. And, your confidence, your belief in yourself, like all of those things matter so much when you are an entrepreneur. And so for me, it actually forced me to look at myself in ways that I had not had to before. Which is really, that's the spiritual path, honestly, is like when you're doing the work on yourself, that's your stepping stones into coming back home to you. For some of us, it takes longer than others, but it just is what it is with, what our background is, with how much trauma we've had, how much holding patterns we have in our nervous system, that, you have to allow yourself to be ready for it, basically. So, but I would say really it was like 2014 was kind of the turning point for me, but it really deepened in 2019 when I started the Kundalini Yoga Teacher training program. That's when really things just blasted wide open for me.
I want to explore something with you with respect to pushing emotions down, whether we consciously do it through suppression or we unconsciously do it with repression, where they get pushed down and buried, and most of us don't like the pain associated with them, so better just stay buried, right? Well, one of the things that occurs to me within the spiritual community, and I know I've absolutely fallen prey to this with my own awakening, is that the emphasis is disproportionately placed on ascension. And yet there seems to be a critical element that's lacking in that mindset, with which is descension, which is actually going deeper into the body in order to break up or disrupt those suppressed or repressed emotions in order to heal them. Am I on point with that thought process?
100%. I love how you said that too. Yes, yes. And it is something that a lot of people in the spiritual New Age community, they're trying to bypass. And a lot of the rhetoric is doing a huge disservice to people because it is making them think that they just need to elevate their. I mean, I've had people reach out to me to do readings or whatever, like, oh, I really want to keep elevating my vibration. They'll tell me, okay. So that's where they start. But the truth is, they like, in order to do that, you have to go inward. You must connect with your body. And yes, it does require descension. It requires grounding all the way in, all the way, in order to really heal. And because we can't ignore any of those stuffed down emotions, they are there. And until we allow ourselves to be present with them in by being physically present in the body, none of it will disappear, right? It's like when we can be present and just be with whatever is, that actually creates what I like to use the word transmutation. It starts to alchemize all of that heaviness, all of that, the stuffed down darkness that we've just been not acknowledging. And as we just can stay with it and be present, and we must be in our bodies to do this, and it's very uncomfortable at times, but when we allow ourselves to do that, that's when the gold comes, right? Because we alchemize it. It's like we're turning all that lead, all that heaviness. By being present and accepting it, we start to turn it into gold. And that is what elevates us. But we have to go so far down first.
Yeah, it seems like there's an inverse relationship where the deeper we descend, the more capacity or ability we have to ascend, because we're
Yes.
breaking all of that up. That's really,
It's beautiful.
really
Yes. I love how you
interesting.
see that and understand that, because it is so true. It's so true.
Well,
And not a lot of people understand that.
well, Julie, I can tell you, it's just been in the recent past that I've gained that understanding, because I'm listening to these podcasts, I'm watching these videos about ascension and vibration and frequency, and attract this and this, and I'm like, okay, so what is supposed to happen here? But it really hasn't been until I had that recognition to say, you know what, maybe I'm ignoring the other side of this. I recognize that there was an imbalance. I didn't know exactly what that was to start, and once I did, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to go there. That's too much work, that's too much pain. And yet that's the answer.
Yes. And the thing is that, you know, in my classes, for instance, when I teach the workshops or my yoga classes or Qigong classes, whatever, and people have the experience of having the tears come, having a moment like that, I remind them that, you don't even need to assign a, a label to what it is that's coming up. You don't have to know exactly what this is from or what emotion it is that you're feeling right now. It's just, you just need to allow it to be what it is. Right? As soon as we go into our heads, it's like when we start to undo it almost. So it's just like, just allow it to be, understand this is stuck energy from a long time ago that's coming up now. And it needs to come up, and we're just going to allow it to come up, because that's one less thing you're going to have to do later, right? But in that moment, they've gotten very present in their body, which feels uncomfortable, potentially. Maybe it feels really, sometimes it feels really good, but in any case, it's this very deep, whoo, and then all of a sudden that breakthrough comes, right? So yeah, I think it's, like I say, you don't have to know exactly what it is that you're allowing to release in that moment. It's just allow that release to happen. That really matters.
As you were describing that just then, I couldn't help but think about masculine and feminine energy, where masculine is action oriented, right? Processes, structures, frameworks. And in this context, it would seem to be the energy that takes action to suppress feelings and emotions, as compared to what you were describing about allowing them to come up, is more feminine in that it allows for there to be a caring and nurturing element, even though you have to deal with discomfort. What's your general sense of that idea?
So I think that when you said that the more masculine thing is to try to like put a name on it, fix it, do that, right? That's kind of like that is how the masculine energy shows up, but that's not always in its aligned state. True divine masculine holds space for her, for the divine feminine. And so in that moment of allowing that release to come up, and this applies for, this could be a man in my class having the experience, it can be a woman, it doesn't matter. It's to allow the divine feminine energy to just surrender into what is, and know that you are being held and you are safe by the divine masculine that is also there. Because the divine masculine allows the divine feminine to feel safe enough to allow for that release to happen. He holds the space and the container for that.
I appreciate that clarification. That's helpful for sure. I want to touch on the Akashic records. What are they, and can anyone gain access to them?
So the Akashic records are basically like the internet of your soul, the internet superhighway of your soul, in that anything, all the soul's history is recorded in the Akashic records. So anything that has ever happened, is there. In theory, anyone can access their records. However, you cannot access other people's records without specific approval. Like, you can't I can't access your record, Ed, unless you tell me, oh no, I really want you to, and I need specific information from you in order to do that. If you try to access someone's record without their approval, then you will not get accurate information at all. It will be very just, like completely misleading. So In theory, I think that anyone can access their records if they know how. Yeah.
What's the benefit of accessing the Akashic records in terms of healing? So if I were a client of yours and either I made that request or you made that recommendation, what do I stand to gain by allowing you access to my records, and how does that ultimately apply to healing?
Yeah. So the way that I use the Akashic records is very specific in such that I basically people reach out to me because they want to understand who they are at soul level. They want to understand their soul gifts. So soul realignment is about understanding who you really are at soul level, those soul gifts that at when your soul was incepted by a creator, that in that moment, those gifts that you were endowed with, specific gifts. And over time, over this lifetime, over past lifetimes, often we'll have made choices that have taken us out of alignment with those gifts, for one reason or another. And so the soul gifts, they include all the, beneficial things, all the pros, right? And then they also talk about kind of what happens if you're misaligned with your gifts. Like, how does that show up in your relationships? How does it show up in your work? How does it show up in community and all of those things? So just that in and of itself is super helpful for people to understand. Oh, so people who are in transitional moments of, well, what's next? What am I going to do now? Or why have I just not been feeling fulfilled in this? Like, it's so helpful to understand. Oh, well, here's who you really are, and here's who you've been being instead. And so that's one part of the reading. Then the other part is we look at past life karmic patterns that have still been impacting you today, where the energy of those patterns has been it's basically set you up to easily choose the misaligned path. And so the whole reason why I do these readings, why I like to do them, and why I feel passionate about sharing them is because there is so much. I love giving people tools so that then they know how to actually make changes and create the lives that they want. Because I can't do that for them. Each of us must do it for ourselves. And when you understand, oh, this is why all of this is happening. It's like, I call it kind of like having a moment of, after the readings, of like awareness bombs. They just kind of start popping in everywhere. Like, oh my gosh, I see this pattern. I see this. Oh, I see this all over. Right. And it's when you start to become aware of it, that's when you can make change. If you have no awareness of something that's not serving you, or of a way that you've been being that is just totally not helping you at all, then you can't change it unless you are aware of it. But then once you start seeing it everywhere, then it gives you so many opportunities to start to make new choices. And so that's the whole thing, that is why people come to me, and why they want this, is because they want change. They want to choose something new, but they don't know how. And so they come away very well armed, if you will, with, oh, this is okay. So here is what I can be doing here, And so it's like I guide them with that, and then it is a huge reading. It's a lot of information, and so I always follow it up. Like, the programs that I have are always with support afterwards, so that we can really integrate it for people, so that they can really start to kind of own it and come into who they really are, and repair or change or whatever they need to do, the current realities that they've created, and start creating what serves them instead.
So, what's the relationship between an Akashic Records reading and helping people gain awareness of karmic patterns, and Kundalini yoga and acupuncture? They seem on the surface to be three independent things, and yet you use them in accordance with one another. So what's the relationship between them?
Yeah, okay. So Kundalini Yoga, like I said before, it has a way of just getting you so out of your head, so completely present in your body that and connected in with the truth of who you are, that you it's like you don't have the blinders on that you normally are wearing. It's like it helps you really well. First of all, you connect directly in with your soul when you with this practice. It's that powerful. And so with that practice, with the meditation, with the breath work, with all of the things, the chanting, the singing, it's like it restores your relationship to yourself. And so if you have had the reading with me and you understand, okay, these are my soul gifts, and I understand that the patterns that I've created in this relationship are not serving me, and I understand that this in my work is not serving me at all, and I understand this, and then it's like you can leave the reading and just kind of put those blinders back on and say, well, I know it's not serving me, but right now I just need to do it, blah, blah, blah. Just we rationalize everything, right? And in ways that really keep us stuck so much. So the Kundalini Yoga helps you to keep that awareness, and it keeps you open to these other ways of being that are possibilities too. And really the same with the acupuncture. So I do a specific type of acupuncture called 5-element. 5-element acupuncture is more specifically geared towards treating on the spirit level. So Chinese medicine in general has a much more holistic approach, mind, body, spirit, to healing than traditional, Western medicine. But 5-element acupuncture takes it to several levels, where basically when there's dis-ease on the spirit or mental emotional level, then it manifests physically in the body. And so I'm always treating from that perspective and treating the people at their constitutional level for that. So I'm always treating on the spirit level, which ties right in with the Akashic records, with understanding who you are at soul level, right? So it's when I am, not all of my in-person acupuncture patients have had readings with me, and they still get wonderful benefits. But the patients who have done both have had the readings done, and then we do the treatments. Wow, it's another level again of just transformation that they experience, because we're just able to work on an even deeper level. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it does. It's so good. I appreciate that. The one thing that you mentioned earlier was you experienced burnout. And so many of us in contemporary culture experience varying forms of burnout, whether it's professional burnout or familial burnout, relationship burnout. We're so inundated, or we're so busy. We're not always productive, but we're exceedingly busy. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, is there a singular cause of burnout?
I would say that burnout, I can tell you this, burnout is almost never from overworking. It's almost never from over showing up in the sense of just doing that, because I know for me, I was overworking. I changed up my schedule. I started putting up boundaries with lunch breaks and all of these different things. And I got better for a little while, and then it came back. And it took 3 different rounds of that happening, of different tweakings, for me to realize, oh, there's a much bigger issue here. And so the singular reason for me, for my burnout, which I really believe is to some degree or another, it is everyone. And it is that I really abandoned myself. I kept making choices that didn't serve me. The overworking to begin with, why was I overworking? Why was I choosing that? Well, I was choosing it because I felt like I needed to prove myself. Why did I feel like I needed to prove myself? Well, because when I was a little girl, it was all I had to keep doing that over and over and over again just to try to get a little bit of something from my mom. Well, why did I keep working so hard? Well, because I didn't love myself. Why didn't I love myself? Well, because I didn't think I was worthy of love, because I didn't get the love that I needed when I was a little girl, right? So those were the reasons that put me in that situation of overworking to begin with. There were probably others too, but you see, and all of it really required, it was not required, but it's really a self abandonment, not choosing myself. And I think that is what happens to everyone. We do that in relationships, just like we do it in our careers. We do it in, if you're really deep in a community, like it can happen on all these different levels where suddenly it's like we don't think that we matter enough to put our needs first. No, there's another reason why we have to abandon ourselves, right?
So, from that, is it fair to say that when we fail to choose ourselves, that's the equivalent of our soul being misaligned?
100%.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
it's not our soul, it's like us being misaligned to our souls.
us. Okay, us being misaligned to our souls. Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's helpful because it's funny as you were describing your burnout and how you were coping with that. I know I have fallen into that too, where it's just like, okay, what I need to do is I just need to set boundaries and be strict about them. And yet there's an energy that goes toward being strict about boundaries. And every other method of self-care within this context just didn't seem to fit. And so
Yes.
is it fair to say that traditional self-care approaches ultimately don't get us across that finish line?
Yes. Oh, I love it. Yes. Yes. And that's something that I say that I know is very controversial. Like self care is not going to cure your burnout at all. It will help you maintain, maybe, but that's the best it will do. And the reason is because self care does not equate to self love. Self love is what will cure your burnout. When we choose self care practices from a place of love for ourselves, then yes, that will lead to healing, deep healing. But when we choose self care out of desperation, out of scarcity, out of fear, out of lack, which is what I was doing with the self care for years. I have to meditate because if I don't meditate, I'm not going to sleep. I have to eat this way because if I don't eat this way, I'm not going to make it through the day because I'm so tired. If I don't change my schedule, if I'm not so strict with my boundaries, there's no way I'm going to make it, right? Just all of this fear, really, and desperation. It was desperation, so much desperation. There's no love in that at all. Yeah. So it's another huge thing that has been missed in the conversation about burnout. Self care is not the answer the way that it's promoted in our society.
I want to go down one more lane with you because I mentioned in the opening you're an integrative nutrition health coach. And it seems that one form of self care is proper nutrition. And there's so much confusion within the populace on what to eat, why. You've got keto, you've got vegan, you've got 30,000 other fad diets that are listed with the Food and Drug Administration. And you couple that with not understanding burnout, and then it becomes this negative feedback loop because whenever we don't eat well, we don't feel well, not only physically, but maybe even psychologically and emotionally, we don't feel good about ourselves. And we all need to enroll in a self-esteem class. So from your perspective, how do you integrate the need for properly fueling the body, giving the body with the nutrition it needs, and how that can actually serve as like a springboard in many ways to help people heal and hopefully achieve self-love. Where does nutrition fit in the process for you?
Yeah, and it's such a great question because that is a huge thing. And when it gets down to it, choosing foods that bring nourishment to your body is a practice of self-honor and self-love. Being extremely rigid with a diet because you're trying to lose weight, or because, again, if I don't do this, then something will happen, whatever it is. I'll gain weight, I'll be in pain, or whatever it is. That is not a healthy way to be with your food, no matter how healthy the diet is. I've had clients who have like super on paper healthy diets. They're so unhealthy because their relationship to their body is so unhealthy. And the way that they're eating is so unhealthy because it's like food is their enemy. When you demonize your food, it doesn't matter how good a food it is, it's not going to bring nourishment into your body. So your relationship to your body, your relationship to the food that you eat matters so much. And I personally know from my own experience of being down that path for many years of experimenting with different types of diets and huge supplement regimens and all of these different things. Again, none of it really served me. I mean, I know how my body likes to eat. I know what serves me and what doesn't. And yes, I eat probably much healthier than 97% of the population, just in general. I know a lot, but it also happens to be food that I really enjoy. But that doesn't matter. Like, all of that to say, I've learned over the years to actually allow myself to enjoy and love the food that I'm eating and let it love my body. Because that was the missing piece, was for, again, we're separated from our bodies. So we have the New Age movement trying to, ascend without the body. And then we have nutrition and food that apparently we're not supposed to have a loving relationship with our bodies with, but we can still like get all the results that we want. It doesn't make sense. Like, we have to be one with our bodies. It's our body. We're attached, right? We can't separate the essence of you from your body. You are your body. Your body is you. So that is the thing that I always remind people of, is that we go together. You must form a loving relationship with your body. And that's the turning point for people. When they can develop that, that's really when the healing starts. When, then the weight starts coming off, or, my pain went away, or whatever it is, because it's like they found a way to be with their food and with their bodies.
I really like how you said that we can love our food, but we need to let our food love us. And my mind immediately went to choosing those things that are life giving versus life depleting. That was really well
Yes.
said. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Julie, this has been great. I really appreciate your time. How can listeners learn more about you and the work you're doing?
Yeah, they can go to my website at drjuliehutzel-starling.com. And I'm also on Instagram at Julie_Heartsong and on Facebook at Julie Hutsell-Starling.
Very good. Dr. Julie, thank you again. This has been a really insightful conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ed. Yeah, it was also that was a wonderful conversation too. Thank you so much.
You can contact the show at itsnotmycredittotake.com. We'd love to hear from you. God bless.